What if the very act you thought was insignificant today just detonated in the spirit realm? What if the move your enemies dismissed has already been broadcast in heaven as a declaration of war and victory? And what if the step you nearly ignored was the trigger that made the throne of God erupt in unstoppable laughter of triumph? Chosen one. You are not moving in circles. You are walking in divine choreography. The Lord has been rewriting your story in real time, bending the laws of timing and overturning verdicts that were written against you. That small obedience became a weapon. That silent endurance became a roar. The same moment hell mocked you became the spark heaven celebrated. As it is written in Psalm 2-4, the one enthroned in heaven laughs, the Lord scoffs at them. Tu I have not it my French, and the interleth. Now you are marked not by failure, but by fire. You are no longer the target of defeat. You are the announcement of victory. The laugh of God over your life is not casual, it is cosmic. It dismantles every lie and dismantles every wall. This is your undeniable signal. The chapter is not closing, it is exploding open. Type 777 inches. The comments if you feel this thunder striking your spirit. And to every warrior who has stood with this channel through prayer, through presence, or through super thanks, your faith is oil on this flame. And I thank you deeply. Stay alert, because the next revelation will uncover why this divine laughter is not just a sound over your life. It is the strategy of heaven in motion. God's chosen ones. The thing you did today triggered God's laugh of triumph. Chosen one. Steady your pulse. Heaven is laughing, triumph bursting like a bell that can't be unrung, and that laughter means the hinge has already turned. What if the gesture you called small today registered like thunder in the courts of the King? Could that be why your chest felt warm? Why your steps wouldn't retreat? He who sits in the heavens laughs, Psalm 2-4. Not with cruelty, but with the fierce joy of a father who already knows the end from the middle. The sound you sense is a verdict, read aloud. Schemes overturned. Covenant intact. Pathway opening. You judged yourself by surface metrics, timelines, titles, the scoreboard of applause. Yet heaven uses another calculus. Where you label weak, God names courage. Where you see a seed, He beholds an ecosystem roots. Rivers, rainfall in choreography. Do not despise the day of small beginnings. Zechariah 4:10 is not poetry for refrigerator magnets, it is a law for destinies. A pattern by which kingdoms turn. So your spirit can ask, when did a whisper inside you punch through the noise like a tuning fork finding its pitch? I know those hidden seasons. Prayers that felt like cracked porcelain. Forgiveness granted to unrepentant faces. Hope gripped while despair mimed safety. Yet the Christ who answers through paradox still says, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. 2 Corinthians 12-9. In the inner life, a quiet yes rearranges habits in the architecture of trust. Small consent becomes the centered piece that lets everything else hold. Do you notice how fear begins to loosen when one obedient step lands? Because of that step, heaven erupted. You didn't merely endure a day, you interrupted a strategy. You stood where collapse predicted victory, spoke where silence tried to script you, advanced while fear tried to freeze your muscles. Picture a toddler taking first steps wobbly, off axis. Beautiful, no parent scolds for imbalance. The parent rejoices because movement has begun. That is how God read your actions. Your breathing, your searching, your listening already testify. The plan against me has failed. Each morning you rise, no matter how your hands tremble, aligns you with the ancient promise. And your Father, who sees in secret, will reward you. Matthew 6:6. Which habit is quietly changing under this realization? Heaven's measure honors the hidden, the prayer whispered in a dim room, the apology swallowed and replaced with mercy, the offering nobody applauded. Let us not grow weary in doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up. Galatians 6-9. This is harvest language, not slogan. The minutes you thought were wasted have been gathered, waylaid, and woven into timing. What looked ordinary here registered as thunder there, and the ledger of the unseen recorded the weight of your consent. Which promise have you been tempted to hurry? And what might be preserved by letting the right time arrive? From the halls of craft and culture comes a witness. Antoni Gaudí, the Catalan architect behind the Sagrada Familia, saw in nature's forms a script of patience, and he worked in long horizons, trusting light to arrive through patterns no passerby could yet read. Your obedience carries that cadence. The scaffolding may look unfinished, but lines are aligning for stained glass you don't yet see. From the treasury of sacred art, Dante's pilgrim reaches the summit and names the force behind all motion, the love that moves the sun and the other stars. That love is what surged through your ordinary act, cosmic certainty expressed as a quiet yes. Your pulse met a higher rhythm. The bar of your life entered the symphony at the appointed cue. Today, chosen one, you planted what cannot be uprooted by the enemy resilience. Trust. Decisions that carry memory of Eden and a promise of restoration. Momentum has shifted. The path is carrying you through the valley toward clear air. For the Lord takes pleasure in his people. He will adorn the humble with salvation. Psalm 149:4. If the veil were drawn back for a breath, you would see how much has already moved in your favor, and doubt would thin like mist under rising day. Chosen one, grip this with fire in your bones. What felt like a whisper in your room detonated as a shout in the courts of the King. He who sits in the heavens laughs. Psalm 2-4, not a taunt, but verdict-level joy, and that laughter is a decree. The strategy designed to bury you has unraveled at the seam. The board looked lost. The clock was spent. The opponent smirked. Then a quiet, move your move, flipped the entire endgame. Where fatigue tried to make you a statistic, grace turned you into a story. Hold this close. Heaven does not pace the balcony waiting for grand theater. Heaven answers faith, purity, truth. One hidden yes outranks 1,000 hollow speeches. One secret act of integrity outweighs 100 rehearsed performances. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. Isaiah 54-17 reads like a headline across your timeline. And today, you watched the subtext shift. What changed in you when you chose courage over comfort? And why does your chest know it before your mind can name it? The enemy studied your hesitations, mapped your late nights, built traps around your exhaustion, but the pattern broke. You gave when resources felt scraped to the bone. You rose where failure was expected. You spoke where silence promised safety. That single motion triggered a chain reaction you cannot yet compute. In spiritual dynamics, obedience is catalytic, a small input that alters the whole equation. Which old cycle just lost its momentum the moment you said yes? Survival, by the way, is not small. Survival is testimony. Every breath says, I am still here. Every step whispers, the plan against me has failed. And each time you continue, Heaven leans forward and answers with delight. Let us not grow weary in doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up. Galatians 6-9. Not a slogan, but a law of harvest written into your hours. Where have you been tempted to downgrade your progress because applause was absent? Now watch the plot thicken with nature's parables, fresh ones written into creation's margin notes. An alpine snowmelt looks gentle at first, yet it carves valleys over stone. Your small daily mercy is that water on granite, shaping futures that pretend to be permanent. A desert seed sleeps for years until a rare rain unlocks it. Your long-held prayer is that seed, primed for the precise saturation that came today. A colony of bees performs quiet waggle dances in darkness to direct others to nectar. Your small obedience became a map for people who haven't met you yet. Swallows cross oceans guided by magnetic threads we barely understand. Your spirit, tuned to the Father's joy, follows a line through storms that instruments miss. Which of these images mirrors what is rising in you right now? Heaven's laughter is also signal. It means the ground beneath you is loosening. The field is answering. The harvest you named in tears is beginning to push through. Those who sow in tears shall reap with shouts of joy. Psalm 126-5. Your tears were not wasted moisture but irrigation. The outcome is changing. The tide is turning. Favor is moving toward you like a strong current that finally caught your keel. What if acceleration is not noise or pace, but alignment, and you already stepped into it? Because truth can bear warning. Here is a counter-witness, introduced briefly so the lesson lands. Jeffrey Skilling, once the powerhouse CEO behind Enron's meteoric rise, helped engineer an illusion of success through accounting gymnastics. For a season, the world applauded the glow, then the numbers collapsed. The company imploded. Employees lost pensions, and a generation learned what counterfeit shine costs. That is the destiny of hollow spectacle. Your path is different. Substance over display, covenant over trend, fruit over hype. Which temptation to rush would trade a lifetime orchard for a flash of fireworks? You are not on the outskirts of God's attention. You are in the bull's eye of His pleasure. We know that for those who love God, all things work together for good. Romans 8:28 does not erase the ache. It reroutes the ache toward meaning. Today's yes threaded your pain into purpose. What once felt like random fragments now begins to assemble like stained glass in the light. The laughter you sense is the sound of timing catching up to promise. Lean in further without apology. The battle is not in suspense. The verdict has been read. Your ordinary courage became the key that fits a locked season. Heaven answers depth, not volume. Depth is alive in you, and depth carries weight in the unseen. Where promotions are authored before they are posted, heaven treasures the hidden, is not a poetic flourish. It is policy in the kingdom that never shakes. So here is the charge that belongs to this moment. Rise. Square your shoulders under the smile of God. Pray the line you've postponed. Send the message you drafted and deleted. Bless the one who expected your silence. Walk through the door that fear tried to weld shut. Heaven has laughed. The tide has turned. Acceleration has begun. The harvest is responding. Step into it now. Chosen one. Let this settle like voltage across a live circuit. God's laughter over you is not shallow amusement. It is holy triumph. Strategy and declaration. He who sits in the heavens laughs, Psalm 2-4, which means this sound is not reaction, it is announcement. That announcement shakes what cannot be seen, alters boundary conditions, and flips hidden switches in the atmosphere around your life. Chains that seemed welded are developing hairline fractures. Doors that felt bolted are beginning to vibrate. Timelines are bending toward fulfillment, the way light bends through an oculus to flood a nave at noon. Where did you feel that interior click today, the subtle shift from dread to courage that language can't quite hold? His laughter is proof your story has crossed a threshold. Survival, which you sometimes mislabel as failure, is testimony with a pulse. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Psalm 23:4 is not poetry at arm's length, it is oxygen. You outlasted nights built to break you and systems designed to bury you. And your first breath each morning sounds like a verdict. The plan against me has failed. Be honest, which morning felt most impossible? And yet, here you are, breathing, asking, moving. Heaven names that victory. I know that territory where getting out of bed feels like wrestling a regiment. Prayers whispered as syllables barely formed, hope chosen while questions clawed the room. Later, the Lord revealed those moments carried eternal weight. This light, momentary affliction is preparing for us an eternal weight of glory. 2 Corinthians 4:17. Earth ignored it. Heaven recorded it. Sighs became psalms. Tears became seed. Weakness translated into courage. Is that why your heart now holds a steadier cadence? As if a drumline off stage has matched your step, heaven celebrates the first step. Not only the photo at the finish. The world waits for trophies and trending charts. Heaven rejoices when you move, however slight. In truth, that trembling yes you gave today rattled structures in rooms you cannot see. One act of obedience, fragile to the eye, carried force like a post-tensioned cable hidden inside a span. Quiet, but load-bearing. God laughed because he already knows how far this single step will carry you across the season. For still the vision awaits its appointed time, if it seems slow. Wait for it. It will surely come. Habakkuk 2-3. Which hallway of your future started unlocking the moment your foot lifted? The world praises what can be measured in public, yet heaven treasures what cannot be staged. A prayer released in the dark can break a generational chokehold. Forgiveness extended without witnesses can rewire a family's root. Sacrifice offered with no applause can trigger supply routes you did not see coming. Your Father who sees in secret will reward you. Matthew 6-6 is not a suggestion, it is policy. In terms of signal theory, your hidden, yes, increased gain on heaven's channel and reduced interference from fear. In terms of learning science, repeated yeses create Hebbian pathways, cells that fire together, wire together, until faith becomes the brain's default route under pressure. Now picture ripples in water if you must, but let's move deeper. In physics, this is constructive interference, where individual waves align to amplify amplitude. Your obedience set a phase that amplified grace across your timeline. Angels were dispatched. Dormant seeds felt the first push from below. Gates adjusted in their hinges. Behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? Isaiah 43-19. Where did perception sharpen for a blink and show you the outline of an answer already forming? To anchor this in street-level reality, meet Anya, a mail sorter on the night shift. Single mother, not a platform in sight. She tapes a small verse inside her locker. Those who sow in tears shall reap with shouts of joy. Psalm 126-5, and whispers it between conveyor belts. On a week when bills outnumber peace, she places a grocery card in a co-worker's pocket and signs it, from a friend. Months later, that co-worker tells her, eyes wet, that the card stopped an eviction. There were no cameras, no stage, no speech, only hidden integrity that rippled outward like a spanning tree, connecting nodes you'd never map from above. Which tiny act in your day could function like that? Quiet. Precise. Decisive? Because this is not only comfort, it is calibration. Use terms of architecture for your soul. Foundations are setting. A compression ring is locking stones into place. And the lintel you thought would crack is distributing load exactly as designed. In neuroscience, a dopamine prediction error signal fires when outcomes surpass fear's forecast. That is why delight startled you after you said yes. In game theory, the strategy profile just moved away from a destructive equilibrium. Your unexpected obedience disrupted the adversary's payoffs and collapsed a false stable state. In dynamics, you passed a bifurcation point. Small inputs now yield outsized trajectories. Translate that into prayer. Acceleration isn't speed for speed's sake. It is alignment, where timing and path suddenly agree. So the enemy's analytics failed. He modeled your hesitation, counted on your exhaustion, banked on your silence. Today the model broke. You gave when your hands felt empty. You rose when gravity wrote a script for sinking. You spoke when muteness looked safer. That act flipped the board. The battle is the Lord's, 1 Samuel 17:47, is not a slogan painted on a wall, it is jurisdiction. God laughed because he saw the move hell did not plan for the pure yes that forces checkmate without theatrics. Which permission slip to live did you stop begging for the moment you remembered who sent you? This changes posture. Divine laughter silences crawling shame. It ends the habit of asking permission to exist. It stops the comparison that siphons joy. It installs quiet boldness, the stillness you see in an athlete during stoppage time. Heart rate settling, eyes locked, the match shifting without panic. We know that for those who love God, all things work together for good. Romans 8:28 gathers your scattered scenes and scores them into one movement. Yesterday was survival. Today is increase. Soil is loosening under your feet. What you sowed in tears returns with joy. Because the God who laughs does not laugh without cause. His laughter means breakthrough has already begun. Now rise. Shoulders back. Head clear. Spirit steady. Pray the line that's been living in your ribs. Send the message you drafted and kept as a secret. Bless the one who expected your silence. Step through the door that fear tried to weld shut. The decree has sounded. Timing has aligned. And the field is yielding. Walk it out now. Chosen one. Hold this like a living decree in your chest. The years that looked sterile were never barren. Every quiet hour was seed. Not one of those seeds has died. They were hidden on purpose, sheltered beneath the surface for an appointed unveiling. Heaven's laughter is not entertainment, it is rain. And when God declares, now, the calendar itself surrenders. The vision awaits its appointed time if it seems slow. Wait for it. It will surely come. Habakkuk 2-3. Do you feel that interior nudge right now, the moment where delay stops feeling like punishment and starts sounding like promise? That sound from above is not reaction, it is announcement. Unseen realms are shaking, timelines are bending toward fulfillment. The atmosphere around your life has shifted, like night giving way to a sudden dawn. As the rain and the snow come down from heaven, so shall my word be, it shall not return to me empty. Isaiah 55:10-11. Chains that pretended to be permanent are cracking. Doors that resisted you are trembling in their hinges. Which door have you quietly pressed for years, only to notice today that it finally moves? Hear this with your spirit. Survival is never small, it is testimony with breath in it. You outlasted storms designed to bury you, kept walking through nights arranged to break you, and every sunrise you greeted became a proclamation to the unseen: the plan against me has failed. Those who sow in tears shall reap with shouts of joy. Psalm 126:5. Isn't that why your heart tightened when the first laugh of heaven rolled across your horizon? As if fields you forgot you planted just lifted their heads when the King laughs. It is not dismissive, it is decisive. It means legacy is in motion. What you did today has generational reach. Which name in your family line just flashed across your mind, the one who will inherit a door your yes unlocked? Heaven treasures the hidden where earth often refuses to look. A whispered prayer in a dim room can unfasten a generational curse. Forgiveness released with no audience can draw a straight path for descendants. A costly, unseen sacrifice can become the hinge that swings open a city's gate. Let us not grow weary in doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up. Galatians 6-9. You did not simply endure for yourself, you carried destiny within you, neighbors, households, communities living downstream of your obedience. What if your smallest consent today became the loudest announcement in your bloodline? To ground this, meet a witness from history. George Washington Carver, an American scientist and educator who braided faith with invention, once counseled his students that faithful attention to small things eventually commands the attention of the world. He began before applause, stewarding peanuts and soil when no spotlight lingered. Harvest answered from places others overlooked. Your path carries that same grammar: fidelity first, visibility later. Which simple task have you been tempted to despise? Though heaven is weighing it like gold, heaven's laughter is also activation. It sets currents in motion that no darkness can reverse. The ground beneath your feet is prepping for increase. What was delayed is being released. What was locked is beginning to open. The crooked places ahead are straightening under a decree that outruns you. You once called the quiet years wasted time, but in truth they were formation roots thickening under pressure. Endurance planted in struggle's soil. If you look back with new eyes, can you recognize where protection disguised itself as postponement? I know the sting of silence, the ache of praying year after year without visible return, the bruise of celebrating others while your room stayed wordless. Yet there, at the rim of despair, a whisper threaded through: wait, trust my timing. When the pages turned, it became clear blessings had been kept safe until my shoulders could bear them. That is what the laughter means for you now. Heaven is not merely pleased, heaven is proceeding. We know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, Romans 8:28, not randomly, but precisely, like notes finding their chord at the exact measure they were written to enter. And from the treasury of sacred song comes a line that has ferried many through midnight: leave to thy God to order and provide. Sings the hymn, Be Still, my soul, Katharina von Schlegel. That is not passivity, it is alignment. You are not behind. You are not overlooked. You are moving in timing that fits you. And the laughter of God wraps you like a shield as you step. Which lie of insufficiency loses volume when you remember who has already laughed over your story. So lift your head. Let heaven's joy drown the whisper of fear and silence the static of not enough. Walk forward with quiet boldness. Bless the ones who expected you mute. Write the message you've delayed. Plant the offering no one will notice but God. The decree has sounded. Acceleration has begun. The field is answering. Rise now, carry the rain inside you, and go where the doors are finally opening. Chosen one, Take this as a headline written in fire. What felt like wasted years was sacred construction. Heaven's laughter doesn't giggle at your pain. It thunders as decree, now. When God laughs, he is not reacting, he is announcing. And the announcement shakes the scaffolding you thought would cage you. Joel heard this rhythm. I will restore to you the years that the locust has eaten, Joel 2:25. And restoration is exactly what that sound initiates. Where did you sense the interior tremor today? The second walls began to hum, and ceilings started to hairline crack under promise. The phase you called delay was blueprints in the dark. The laugh signals the site is moving from framing to reveal. Doors that denied you are unlocking. Hinges warming under an unseen hand. I will go before you and level the exalted places. I will break in pieces the doors of bronze. Isaiah 45:2. Your obedience in the hidden room has generated momentum in the open square. Prayers cried through salt and silence rose as incense. Sacrifices made without witnesses now carry resonance in halls you've never entered. Which small yes from last season is suddenly echoing back to you with a depth you didn't expect? Heaven sees how these moments braided into destiny. Joseph learned it in a stone corridor, forgotten by people he helped, framed by lies, yet tracked by covenant. When the clock of God struck, not a second late, the lift was immediate, and his verdict reads like a banner over you. You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good. Genesis 50:20. The laugh you sense is the same confidence that turned prison keys into palace summons. If a single day can pivot a dynasty in Scripture, what might this hour be announcing for your line? Survival is not your consolation prize. It is your sworn testimony. You outlasted nights, engineered to collapse you. That sunrise you met with shaking hands was a courtroom declaration. The plan against me has failed. After you have suffered a little while, the God of all grace will himself restore, confirm, strengthen, and establish you. 1 Peter 5:10. Does your chest not register a new steadiness, as if the floor itself has thickened under your feet? Heaven honors hiddenness where earth chases spectacle. A whispered prayer can snap a generational chain. Forgiveness granted with no applause can unlatch doors for descendants. Secret generosity can seed a public harvest. And yes, heaven laughs, because heaven already sees the legacy your obedience secured. Corrie ten Boom, a Dutch Christian who sheltered lives at the risk of her own, once said, "Never be afraid to trust an unknown future to a known God." Her courage did not wait for clarity, it moved. And clarity followed. Which act are you postponing until the applause arrives? When grace is asking you to move first, to tune this moment with language worthy of it. In physics, your faith just crossed activation energy. From that point, reaction proceeds without external push. In acoustics, the Q factor rises when loss drops. Your prayer tightened the resonance of your calling until distractions damped out. In architecture, a shear wall takes lateral force so the whole structure can stand. Your hidden discipline was that wall, absorbing storms no one saw. In psychology, cognitive reappraisal rewrites the body's alarm. Your yes recoded the narrative from threat to assignment. What new posture, head higher? Other steps sure has started to show up in your ordinary hallway walks. Nature itself is holding up parables you haven't used before. Basalt columns shape themselves as lava cools, order forming inside what once looked chaotic. That's your timeline settling into strength. Eucalyptus resprouts bright green after fire scorches the canopy. Resilience is already pushing through your ash. Coral polyps, tiny and tireless, build reefs massive enough to soften oceans. Your daily obedience is that quiet architecture altering whole coastlines of influence. Bamboo grows roots in silence for years, then surges skyward in a brief season. Your underground years were not failure. They were foundation. Which of these pictures best names the stage you're in right now? Not all laughter belongs to light. So, here is a cautionary counter-signal. Elizabeth Holmes, introduced to the world as a visionary entrepreneur, constructed a myth of medical breakthrough. For a season, headlines roared, then truth arrived. Investors bled trust. Patients faced risk. Verdicts were handed down. And a company's collapse became a caution etched into history. Counterfeit acceleration costs lives. Divine acceleration carries peace. Which shortcut is being declined by your spirit because the long road safeguards your inheritance? This changes how you walk. The laughter of God is heaven's weapon. It confuses the adversary's forecasts, scrambles the pattern library of hell, and disarms predictions built on your former hesitations. The oratorio has already cued your entrance. Handel's Messiah takes the scripture on its lips. The Lord God, omnipotent reigneth. FF. Revelation 19:6. And that reign is the key signature of your next measures. He who sits in the heavens laughs. Psalm 2-4. Not at you, but over you, and that joy is a shield as you move. Which lie loses oxygen first? You're behind, or you're unseen, when heaven has already stamped your page. So yes, lift your head. Stop shrinking to fit rooms you have outgrown. Stop apologizing for the oil on your life. The battle is not up for debate. The only open field is when the verdict manifests. And heaven's laughter means soon. Do not despise the day of small beginnings still stands. Zechariah 4:10. But small has never meant powerless. Each whisper holds weight. Each seed holds future rain. Step forward with quiet boldness. Pray the line. Send the message. Bless the one who assumed your silence. Walk through the door that just clicked. The decree has sounded. Acceleration is active. And the house you built in secret is ready for light. Chosen one, lift your eyes. The season has turned like a page that can't turn back. Heaven is celebrating over you, and the laughter of God is echoing through eternity, announcing that what tried to bury you has been repurposed into the soil of blessing. He who sits in the heavens laughs. Psalm 2-4. Not shallow, not empty, not weak royal laughter that carries verdict. When that sound goes out, storms lose momentum, walls begin to buckle, and mountains bow before his word. For whoever says to this mountain and does not doubt, it will be done for him. Mark 11:23. Where did the first crack appear today? The one your spirit noticed before your eyes did. This laughter is not random, it is proclamation. It is heaven's decree that the tide has shifted and the script is being rewritten in your favor. Earthly calendars flutter, heaven's calendar holds. The vision awaits its appointed time. It will surely come. It will not delay. Habakkuk 2-3. You are not late, not forgotten, not behind. His joy is the stamp that says alignment has happened. Which deadline once haunted you that now feels strangely weightless in the presence of this decree? I know the ache of waiting, the sting of delay, the silent prayers, the tightness in the chest as others celebrate while you remain hidden. Looking back, the quiet was not abandonment, it was apprenticeship. Hiddenness trained your hands, silence broadened your capacity, and when his timing arrived, the laughter made sense. We know that for those who love God, all things work together for good. Romans 8:28. Suddenly, scattered scenes stitched into one storyline. Does your heart not register a new steadiness? As if the ground itself acquired depth, every whispered prayer was a seed, every tear watered the soil, every unseen act of obedience fertilized the ground. Heaven's laughter is proof that the soil has split. Shoots are through. What looked interred is alive. What seemed invisible is manifesting. Sarah once laughed at promise because it sounded impossible, but promise had the last laugh. God has made me laugh. All who hear will laugh with me. Genesis 21:6. Which promise in your life is beginning to wear its evidence like a newborn in the crook of your arm? Heaven rejoices because release has begun and the promise is unfolding. To anchor this truth in flesh and blood history, Pope Benedict XVI, theologian and pastor, once told young people, "You were not made for comfort, you were made for greatness. Not fame, but faithfulness." Greatness shows up as a quiet yes when no cameras are around. And heaven calls that yes royal. Which corner of your day is asking for that kind of greatness right now? The laughter of God is also activation. In engineering terms, your story has crossed the hysteresis loop, past the point where reversals snap back. The system now prefers the new direction. In architecture, you've reached the catenary, a curve that holds vast weight by its very shape. Grace is bearing load, where effort used to strain. In neuroscience, synaptic pruning has begun. Wiring that served old fears is being trimmed, so focus can flow to faith. In control theory, your soul just gained phase, margin stability under disturbance. In celestial mechanics, you've arrived at a Lagrange point, held in place by a harmony of forces that used to shove you around. Which of these pictures names the physics your heart feels? Creation adds its witness with scenes we haven't used before. Aurora curtains fold across polar skies when invisible particles meet a magnetic shield. Your prayer, unseen. Relentless just met God's field and turned into visible color. Bioluminescent plankton set beaches aflame with blue when waters are stirred in the dark. Movement in your midnight has begun to glow. Glacial carving sounds like thunder when centuries of pressure release in a moment. Decades of compression in you are giving way to motion. Starling murmurations pivot as one body at a signal we can't map. Your community will feel a synchronized turn because you heard the cue first. Which scene mirrors the turn unfolding in you? Because wisdom also warns. Here is a counter-witness, introduced briefly, so the lesson lands. Billy McFarland, promoter of the ill-fated Fire Festival, sold luxury visions without the infrastructure beneath them. The result, stranded crowds, lawsuits, prison, and a cratered trust that will take years to rebuild. Counterfeit acceleration dazzles and then collapses. Divine acceleration builds foundation first and then invites you to step onto it. Which shortcut is losing its shine now that heaven's route has opened? This changes posture. The laughter of God dismantles the enemy's predictive model of you and confuses strategies set against your timing. In music, this is tonic resolution. The tension you've carried finally lands on home note. In structural design, a moment frame quietly takes lateral shock. Your disciplined prayers have been absorbing impacts others thought would topple you. In seismology, you've moved beyond the liquefaction threshold, no more sinking in shifting sands, bearing capacity has returned. Which habit proves this head higher? Apology gone. Stride sur, a witness from ordinary life. Fresh to this page, Lana, a commuter train cleaner who begins work at 2 a.m. keeps a folded verse in her pocket and slides a granola bar under a conductor's door with the note, "Strength for the morning." No one thanks her, no one films it. Weeks later, that conductor tells a colleague he chose not to quit because someone keeps believing for me before dawn. Lan never hears the story, but heaven records the weight. Which small, precise kindness is in your hands today that may carry more voltage than a speech, from sacred art and sound. Another layer, Allegri's Miserere, lifts Psalm 51 into the rafters, Miserere me. Deus, mercy rising on a lone soprano that seems to suspend time. That is the acoustics of your hour, confession behind you, mercy before you, resonance above you. Heaven's laughter doesn't cancel grief, it crowns it. It says, walk on, alignment is real, not either them, 1, 2, and Dellas, and 2, now rise, shoulders back, breath steady, eyes bright. Pray the line you shelved, write the letter you drafted and hid, bless the person who expected your silence. Step through the door that just clicked. Carry this assurance like armor. If heaven has laughed over your life, victory isn't hypothetical, it's in motion. Chosen one. Provision has always carried a mystery. What you thought appeared from nowhere, unexpected resources. Sudden connections. Doors swinging open in impossible corridors was not chaos, it was choreography. In those moments, heaven had been laughing all along. And the joy of the Lord is your strength. Nehemiah 8:10. His laughter declared victory, while your eyes still scanned shadows. Proof that God was writing outcomes your hands could never have engineered. Do you remember the exact moment when you realized your survival was not coincidence but covenant? You may feel unqualified, yet heaven has already appointed you. You may feel unseen, yet heaven has already applauded you. You may feel weak, but he has clothed you in strength. As he promised Paul, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. 2 Corinthians 12-9. Stop diminishing what endurance has cost you. Stop belittling what obedience has birthed. Heaven does not laugh over wasted stories. If God has laughed, then scars are already transforming into testimonies, tears into rivers, pain into power. Which part of your story are you still calling waste, while heaven is already calling it resource? Heaven's laughter is not shallow, it is decree. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. Isaiah 54-17. And what the enemy designed to bury you is now the soil from which blessing breaks through. Your breakthrough is not yours alone, it is transgenerational. Your hidden yes can be the hinge of 1,000 doors. Your resilience becomes courage for weary hearts. Your persistence ignites fire in those ready to surrender. Which unseen battle of yours might be the reason someone else dares to rise tomorrow? God sees the ripple of your obedience. Generations are shifted because you kept standing. Think of Esther, trembling but resolute, who chose to act and saved her people. Her courage was not a solitary moment, it became a collective deliverance. That same rhythm plays now. You are not crawling toward victory, you are advancing from victory already secured. Heaven laughs because the enemy's script has been torn, because the curse has been cancelled, because his decree is louder than your doubt. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. Psalm 30-5. Which night of weeping has secretly already given birth to dawn? Heaven's laughter is not passing, it reverberates. It echoes across eternity like an organ chord in a cathedral, saturating every stone with resonance. When God laughs, his joy becomes momentum, his delight the wind behind your steps. His sound is not confined above, it enters creation, shaking structures, breaking patterns, establishing new foundations. From music's treasury, Handel's Messiah carries this same cadence, Hallelujah, for the Lord God omnipotent reigneth. Revelation 19:6. That chorus, once sung in King George's court, is still thunder, centuries later, proof that heaven's proclamation doesn't fade. It accumulates. What proclamation has already been released over you that will outlast your lifetime? History adds another witness. Henri Matisse, the French painter, once said near the end of his life, "There are always flowers for those who want to see them." He cut shapes from colored paper while sick in bed, crafting masterpieces no one expected from a weakened body. His limitation became the stage for a new form of glory. Isn't that what God does with you, turning the very place you call small into a canvas of eternity? Heaven measures differently. Your yes has weight. Your prayer carries voltage. Your obedience holds eternal authority. I know this by experience. There were nights when I thought my whispers vanished into the ceiling. Yet later, I learned they had thundered in the unseen. My smallest obedience produced waves beyond my reach, unraveling the threads of schemes meant to silence me. For still the vision awaits its appointed time. It will surely come. Habakkuk 2-3. Can you feel it? The unraveling of plans that once seemed immovable, already dismantled thread by thread. So rise in holy confidence. This is not arrogance. It is agreement with heaven. Lift your head. Chosen one. The King has laughed over your life. Carry that sound inside you until fear has no language left. Walk with the authority of one crowned in joy. Step forward knowing the story is sealed, the ending secure, and the victory undeniable. Heaven's laughter is your covering, your confidence, and your crown. Rise now, advance with the wind of divine delight at your back. Chosen one. Remember this with fire in your spirit. People were touched, chains shattered, provision streamed in, and all the while heaven was laughing, delighting in the unseen power released through fragile faith. Without faith, it is impossible to please God. Hebrews 11:6. Which means heaven's measurements are not built on feelings or appearances, but on trust. A single seed sown in weakness can erupt into a forest of transformation. A trembling yes whispered in the dark can snap chains rusted across generations. Have you ever paused to realize that your quietest obedience carried more voltage in the spirit than entire speeches crafted for applause? That is why God laughs. Not because your step was flawless, but because it was faithful. The enemy studies patterns, predicting reactions like a statistician building traps tailored to your history, expecting you to fold, retreat, or sink into silence. But today, you fractured the cycle. You forgave when bitterness tried to seduce you. You prayed when silence looked safer. You stood when collapse seemed inevitable. That was the unpredicted move that flipped the board. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. Isaiah 54:17. And when that decree sounded, calculations in hell disintegrated. Which pattern in your own life is now groaning under the weight of heaven's laughter? Understand this. Heaven celebrates not only the outcome, but the instant you refuse to repeat the cycle. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. James 4:7 is more than counsel. It is courtroom law. Every time you resist an old temptation, heaven laughs. Every time you trust where fear pressed in, heaven laughs. Every forward step wobbling, shaking, nearly undone sets eternity echoing. His joy has become the soundtrack of your resilience. Can you hear it? The rhythm of heaven overlaying the beat of your racing heart. I know the intimacy of these battles. Cycles felt endless. Temptations familiar. Patterns rehearsed. But the day I acted differently. The atmosphere cracked open. Nothing dramatic shifted on the outside. Yet in the spirit, chains shattered. The laughter of God carried me forward. Weeping may tarry for the night, but joy comes with the morning. Psalm 30:5. And that joy became propulsion. I discovered that one decision to sever an old rhythm can inaugurate an entirely new season. Which decision sits before you right now, waiting to unleash the ripple? The laughter of God is not nostalgia, it is prophecy. It declares acceleration is underway. Doors are unbolting. Momentum is shifting. You will not merely survive, you will advance. You will not just endure, you will overflow. Behold, I am doing a new thing, now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? Isaiah 43:19-4. Isn't that why your pulse quickens when you sense doors moving in hinges you thought were rusted shut? Heaven is not impressed by noise, it responds to depth. One act of integrity outweighs 100 staged performances. One whispered prayer in secret shakes more than 1,000 shouts for recognition. Heaven laughs because it knows what truly counts. Parents don't demand perfection at a child's first step. They rejoice in courage, not flawless balance. That is the lens of heaven, not frustration over imperfection, but delight in obedience. Which first step are you discounting? When heaven is celebrating it like a coronation, nature itself agrees. The nautilus shell, growing in chambers hidden within, carries spirals that expand quietly until they form an unbreakable design. Your faith has been spiraling upward in ways you barely saw. The kingfisher dives headlong into water without fear of impact because it trusts the precision of its beak. Your prayers pierce atmospheres others avoid. The sequoia may tower for centuries, yet its strength lies in roots intertwined with others. Your resilience is woven into the fabric of many destinies. Which image most mirrors the faith rising in you right now? And history gives a cautionary echo through its antagonists. Napoleon Bonaparte, once the terror of Europe, built strategy upon overconfidence. For a time, he was unstoppable until overreach met reality at Waterloo. His empire unraveled in weeks, leaving exile and defeat as his legacy. That is what happens when arrogance writes destiny. Heaven's laughter, by contrast, unseats pride and secures the humble. Which trap of self-reliance are you stepping out of so heaven can laugh over you? So rise now. Chosen one, rise with holy confidence, not arrogance, but agreement with heaven's decree. Walk as one already approved, already anointed, already carried by the current of divine joy. Lift your head, silence the lies, and carry the sound of laughter inside you until fear has no script left. The King has laughed over your life, and his laughter is not commentary, it is command. The battle is decided, the ending secure, the victory undeniable. Step forward, advance, overflow, chosen one. The laughter of God is not trivial sound, it is heaven's standing ovation for your courage to keep moving. The Lord your God is in your midst, a mighty one who will save. He will rejoice over you with gladness. He will quiet you by his love. He will exult over you with loud singing. Zephaniah 3:17. When that frequency enters your atmosphere, it drowns the whispers of doubt, silences accusations of failure, and cancels predictions of defeat. Which voice is louder in your spirit right now? The echo of past wounds, or the rhythm of heaven's delight? Victory, then, is not theory, it is destiny. Heaven is not waiting for a finish line to throw confetti. Heaven is celebrating already. The instant you chose faith, you released resonance into your environment. A sound wave carrying strength, confidence, covering, and crown. In physics, this is resonance amplification, where a small vibration, aligned at the right frequency, shakes an entire bridge. Your whispered yes is that vibration, and the bridge of your destiny is already swaying toward breakthrough. Which moment of trembling obedience are you underestimating? When God has measured it in eternity's scales, you are not stepping alone, you are moving to the tempo of divine laughter. The joy of the Lord is your strength, Nehemiah 8:10, which means your energy doesn't come from applause but from approval already given. The world craves spectacle and noise. Heaven leans toward depth. One whispered, yes, carries more authority than 1,000 empty proclamations. One act of integrity in secret is heavier on heaven's scales than 100 performances rehearsed for applause. Which hidden decision from your story still vibrates in the unseen, carrying more power than a stage could ever provide? You may have felt unseen, ordinary, overlooked, but heaven has leaned close, branding you extraordinary. Stop comparing your walk to the highlight reels of others. Heaven is not measuring noise. Heaven is measuring depth. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart. 1 Samuel 16:7. Maybe survival felt like failure, yet every breath you inhale is a prophetic announcement. I am still here. Every step you take whispers, the plan against me has failed. Isn't that survival itself a living testimony that your life has already defied predictions? Your resilience has been underestimated. You've lived inside battles so long you've forgotten the weight of your own strength. But scars are not shame, they are prophecy. Every healed wound is a preview of acceleration. Those who sow in tears shall reap with shouts of joy. Psalm 126:5. Heaven laughs now because the season has shifted. This is not merely survival, it is momentum. It is acceleration. In game theory, we'd call this a tipping point. In architecture, a keystone locking into place. In psychology, a flow state where resistance collapses. Which ground beneath your feet is already softening, preparing to yield fruit from seeds planted in tears. To anchor this truth, hear the testimony of Rosa, a factory worker who rises before dawn, sliding Bible verses into her lunch bag before her shift. She once told her daughter, I whisper scripture to the machines because even steel remembers. Years later, that daughter, now an engineer, said those whispered prayers carried her through nights when equations failed. Rosa was never on a stage, but her hidden yes built foundations of destiny. Which quiet act of yours might be the foundation stone for someone else's miracle? Heaven's laughter also exposes the folly of its opposites. Think of Charles Ponzi, who constructed an empire of promises with no foundation. For a time, the world applauded. Wealth seemed unstoppable, but illusion collapsed. Trust evaporated, and his name became shorthand for fraud. That is the fate of counterfeit progress. Heaven's laughter, by contrast, is sustainable. It celebrates what endures, not what dazzles. Which foundation are you standing on? Hollow spectacle or eternal weight? From the treasury of sacred art comes Dante's Paradiso, where he describes the love that moves the sun and the other stars. That same love is pulsing now through the laughter of God over you. It is not passive joy, it is signal. It means the tide has turned. The appointed season has arrived. and the very soil beneath you is vibrating with readiness. Which seed of yours, buried long ago, do you sense is pushing upward even now? So rise. Chosen one, shoulders steady, head lifted, spirit unshaken. Carry heaven's laughter as your soundtrack, your armor, your crown. Step forward in holy boldness, not striving for victory, but advancing from victory already sealed. This is not the time to shrink, this is the time to stand. Heaven has laughed. The ground is stirring. The harvest is imminent. Rise and walk into the acceleration already written in your name. Anointed one, the tension in your spirit is no accident. The stirring, the urgency, the sense that something vast is circling your life, this is heaven, announcing that the unseen is colliding with the now. For the creation waits in eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed. Romans 8:19. Heaven's laughter is not subtle background noise, it is the sound wave that reshapes timelines, shakes loose breakthroughs, and pulls tomorrow's promise into today's air. And all of it ignited because you whispered yes in a place where no would have been simpler. Which decision in your past felt insignificant, yet now seems to have carried the weight of eternity? Your obedience, small as it seemed, created a cascade. Think of how a pebble entering water sends ripples far beyond its first circle. Yet this ripple was not natural, it was eternal. Angels moved at its vibration. Chains began to weaken. Doors long sealed started to quiver on their hinges. Seeds buried in silent soil stirred awake. Do not despise these small beginnings, for the Lord rejoices to see the work begin. Zechariah 4:10. Could it be that your trembling yes is already echoing in courts higher than you can imagine? Heaven does not laugh without reason, nor does God celebrate without cause. His laughter carried promise. Verdict, decree, the Lord will fight for you, you need only to be still. Exodus 14:14. That sound was not commentary, it was confirmation. The battle is already shifting in your favor. Which doubt still lingers in your chest when heaven has already published the outcome? You may have been trained to save celebration for the finish line, but heaven erupts at the first step. The journey itself is holy, progress itself is sacred. Being confident of this, that he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion. Philippians 1:6. When this truth finally sinks in, the burden of not there yet dissolves, and the confidence of already chosen takes its place. Do you feel how that shift lightens your spirit? How it untangles the knots of delay? Once you carry that kind of holy assurance, intimidation loses its grip. The enemy's lies turn hollow. Rejection loses authority. Delay no longer defines you. The king has laughed, and his laughter has sealed the verdict. I recall the words of Dag Hammarskjöld, former Secretary General of the United Nations, who wrote in his private journal, "For all that has been, thanks. For all that shall be, yes." His confession was not about applause, but about alignment, about the weight of a surrendered yes. Isn't that the same surrender rising in you now? Even in the trembling, heaven measures differently from earth. One whispered, yes, outweighs 1,000 staged declarations. One act of hidden obedience breaks more chains than 100 public performances. When you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father, who is unseen. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you. Matthew 6:6. God saw you today, the hidden effort, the trembling obedience, the fragile offering, He saw it, and he laughed with joy. Which part of your story have you mistaken for weakness, when heaven has already called it strength? That laugh means your story is not stalled. That laugh is a prophetic frequency reverberating through your atmosphere, rewriting your ending in advance. It means your obedience holds power far beyond your perception. Carry that sound in your spirit. Hear it as Beethoven once scored his Ninth Symphony, Ode to Joy, a chorus of triumph that still thunders across centuries, unconfined by time, echoing like the joy of heaven that will not fade. If the creator of galaxies has leaned back on his throne, smiling, laughing over your life, can any whisper of doubt still convince you that you are behind? So rise, chosen one. Walk with the rhythm of heaven's laughter under your feet. Let that sound drown out despair, silence, insufficiency, and anchor your steps in holy confidence. The King has laughed. The verdict is sealed. The ending is secure. Carry that laugh like a crown, for it is not merely joy, it is acceleration. It is proclamation. It is destiny already written. Anointed one. That ending is not in question, it is victory written in fire. When heaven laughs, the sound is never shallow or random. It is not a fleeting burst of joy, it is a decree with weight, a seal with authority, a prophecy encoded into eternity. He who sits in the heavens laughs, the Lord holds them in derision. Psalm 2-4. His laughter is proof that your obedience has already shifted tectonic plates in the unseen, tilting timelines in your favor. Which ordinary act you thought was survival is heaven already recording as conquest. What you labeled as merely enduring became evidence that you are unstoppable in him. Heaven's laughter is not only about your survival, but about what will flow through you. They overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. Revelation 12:11. Heaven laughs because your testimony is blueprint. Heaven laughs because your scars carry medicine for those still bleeding. Heaven laughs because your whispered yes is echoing across generations you may never meet. Do you realize that your story, once whispered in secrecy, is now scaffolding for lives you don't yet know? The enemy feared this all along. That is why shame pressed against you like a suffocating fog. Why whispers tried to convince you your prayers were too frail to matter. But each prayer carried thunder in eternity. Each act of endurance struck like a tremor under the foundations of darkness. The prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective. James 5:16. Heaven laughed not at your weakness, but because God already saw the ripple effect of your persistence. Which of your scars, once despised, it is now glowing as a lantern for another traveler in the valley. I lived this. There was a season when endurance felt like my only possession. I whispered, if I can just survive, maybe that will be enough. Later I learned people had been watching in silence. They saw me stand when collapsing looked easier, and they drew strength from my scars. They found courage in my persistence. Then it struck me, my survival was not just mine. It became their breakthrough, too. Isn't that why Paul could declare, for when I am weak, then I am strong, 2 Corinthians 12:10. Heaven laughed because one fragile yes became a river flowing into many lives. Chosen one, your life has become a living sermon. Your scars preach louder than polished speeches. Your endurance, a testimony etched into eternity's archives. Your breakthrough is now a manual others will read when they are desperate for direction. Heaven laughs because what once looked like defeat is now wisdom. What felt like failure has become a sharpened weapon. The valley you endured has transformed into a map for freedom. Every scar is a cartographic line pointing toward God's faithfulness. Which valley of yours is about to become someone else's roadmap to liberty? Heaven's laughter also announces divine transfer. What was stolen will be restored with interest. What was withheld will be released in fullness. I will restore to you the years that the swarming locust has eaten. Joel 2:25. Heaven laughs because provision is shifting, opportunities are aligning, and influence is being redirected to those who remained faithful when applause was absent. This is not chance, it is covenant. In economics, one might call it redistribution of resources. In heaven's economy, it is restoration multiplied. When doors swing open before you, walk boldly. They are not accidents, they are assignments. Heaven laughs because the path was paved long before you realized it. No wall can stand, no barrier can remain. His laughter is proof the way has been cleared and the keys already placed in your hands. As Christ promised, I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. Matthew 16:19. Which locked gate are you still staring at? Unaware the key has been in your grip all along. And yes, doubts rise in these moments. Why me? Am I really chosen? Do I deserve this? I have asked those same questions, but God whispered it was never about deserving, always about surrender. Heaven doesn't laugh because you earned. Heaven laughs because you agreed. Your yes carries eternal weight. Your obedience has already cracked generational chains. Your persistence is releasing freedom that will echo long after you are gone. God's laughter is also warfare. It destabilizes strategies of darkness. Ridicule, hell's futility, dismantles its architecture of fear. It is the cosmic sound wave that proclaims, this battle is already won. Heaven laughs because the enemy overplayed his hand. Isn't that the irony of grace, that what was designed to bury you became fertilizer for the very blessing rising now? Anointed one, hear this thunder. What was engineered to bury you has become the fertile soil of your blessing. You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good. Genesis 50:20. What was designed to silence you has amplified your voice. What was crafted to break you has made you unshakable. Chosen one, let this truth anchor you. If God is laughing, you can rest. If God is laughing, you can trust. His laughter is not careless noise, it is covenantal decree. Eternity's verdict spoken in advance. Which memory of defeat do you still carry when heaven has already labeled it victory? His laughter roars louder than fear, eclipses every doubt, drowns every whisper of insecurity. The Lord is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear? Psalm 27:1. This season is not about mere survival, it is about overflow. Not about hiding, it is unveiling. Not about delay, it is manifestation. Heaven laughs because your mantle is too weighty to remain unseen, your authority too sharp to stay unheard, your influence too vast to be confined. When heaven has already celebrated your yes, how can comparison still chain your confidence? Carry heaven's laughter as your anthem. Let it silence fear, crush comparison. Steady your soul when doubt whispers again. Step forward with holy boldness, for the decree has been spoken, the outcome settled, the laughter of the King already woven into your crown. The Lord your God is in your midst, he will exult over you with loud singing. Zephaniah 3:17. Which whisper of insecurity can survive when the Creator himself is already singing and laughing over you? The laughter of heaven is not a faint echo. It is a living roar reverberating through creation. Decree clothed in sound. When the Father laughs, it is not entertainment, it is power. It is heaven's announcement that every scheme of darkness has already collapsed, that your destiny is sealed in triumph. As Isaiah declared, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper." Isaiah 54:17. Which of the enemy's predictions still holds weight when the king has already laughed them into ruin? And his laughter is not confined to history or hope, it is alive now. It surrounds you like a shield, covers you as armor. When he laughs, angels surge into motion. Doors, long locked, swing open. Chains, thought permanent, fall into fragments. In science, this is resonance, the frequency that cracks what once seemed unbreakable. His laughter shifts atmospheres, commands alignment, accelerates blessing. Which locked place in your life is already trembling because heaven's frequency has touched it? I know the ache of silence, the gravity of waiting. I have lived through nights where prayer felt unanswered, hope felt fragile. Hope deferred makes the heart sick, but a desire fulfilled is a tree of life. Proverbs 13:12. Yet when breakthrough came suddenly, I understood heaven had not been silent. God had been laughing all along, not mocking, but shielding. His joy was proof that delay was design, that hiddenness was preparation, that nothing was wasted. Which night you called abandonment was in truth protection until the appointed hour. Your survival itself is not small, it is prophecy in motion. Every breath is testimony, every step a declaration that the plan has failed. The enemy crafted collapse with precision. Yet here you are, breathing, praying, forgiving, hoping. Each fragile act shook the unseen, provoked heaven's joy, ignited laughter in the throne room. Weeping may tarry for the night, but joy comes with the morning. Psalm 30:5. Isn't your very survival already a living sermon of resurrection power? Heaven's laughter does not merely celebrate survival, it announces multiplication. You are not just recovering fragments, you are stepping into overflow. Teresa of Avila, the Carmelite mystic, once wrote, "God alone suffices." In her hidden cloister, she discovered that obedience and surrender were more potent than applause. Your scars preach the same sermon. What looked like endings were blueprints of beginnings. And across music's history, Handel's Messiah still declares, "The kingdom of this world is become the kingdom of our Lord, and of his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever." Revelation 11:15. That chorus is not antiquated. It is the same anthem that heaven is singing over you now. So rise, chosen one. This is not the time to shrink into shadows. The laughter of God has already dismantled fear, already accelerated promise, already multiplied your influence. Step forward into manifestation with unshakable confidence. The King has laughed, and that laughter is your covering, your confidence, your crown, and your eternal overflow. Rise now, for heaven has already written your ending, and that ending is triumph. Anointed one, hear this thunder of eternity. What was barren will bloom again. As desert sands drink hidden springs and burst into wild flowers, the wilderness and the dry land shall be glad. The desert shall rejoice and blossom like the crocus. Isaiah 35:1. What was broken will not just be repaired, but rebuilt stronger. Like a cathedral rising after fire, arches lifted higher than before. What was delayed will come suddenly, as lightning splits the night sky without warning. Heaven laughs because your inheritance is not scarcity, but overflow, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. Luke 6:38. Tell me, what lie can endure when the laughter of God already proclaims your portion as abundance? Chosen one, release yesterday's shame. Stop rehearsing failures. Stop replaying mistakes like echoes in a hollow cave. Heaven's laughter is louder than regret, silencing guilt, erasing condemnation. There is therefore now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. Romans 8:1. You are not chained to the past, not defined by wounds, not limited by weakness. You are chosen, anointed, redeemed, appointed. But do you realize that his laughter over you is covenantal, not conditional, rooted in surrender, not performance? Heaven laughs because your name is written in the eternal book of destiny, and no hand can erase it. I too have battled whispers of unworthiness. I have asked, am I enough? Why me? But the Lord answered, it is not about perfection, it is about surrender. One trembling yes carries eternal weight. One hidden prayer shifts timelines. One fragile act of faith plants seeds that will outlive you. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to give you a future and a hope. Jeremiah 29:11. How much of your story has already been altered by seeds you do not even know you planted? And never forget this, his laughter is also warfare. It dismantles strongholds, ridicules the futility of darkness, declares to every principality, this battle is already finished. Like David standing before Goliath, slinging one stone and toppling a giant who mocked Israel. 1 Samuel 17:45. Heaven laughs because weapons aimed at you have failed. Heaven laughs because curses turned into blessings. Pits dug for you became wells of provision. Attacks revealed your resilience. But ask yourself, what if the very valley that threatened to crush you was secretly training you to carry a greater crown? Nature itself whispers this truth. A tree battered by wind grows deeper roots. A river diverted carves a stronger channel. A phoenix rises brighter from its ashes. So it is with you. And to illuminate the warning side, history bears witness in villains. Bernie Madoff, who engineered financial webs to ensnare thousands, seemed invincible for decades, but the fraud unraveled, leaving collapse, despair, and millions broken. His schemes whispered permanence, but they fell like a paper tower in the storm. The laughter of heaven declares that no scheme of darkness, however elaborate, will outlast the decree of God. So rise, anointed one, carry heaven's laughter into the night when fear prowls, into the morning when doubt whispers. If God is laughing, you can rest. If God is laughing, you can move boldly, knowing the end is already secure. His joy is your shield, his laughter your confidence, his delight your crown. The joy of the Lord is your strength. Nehemiah 8:10. Will you walk as though the crown already rests on your head, as though the door is already open? You are not chasing victory, you are advancing from it. You are not begging for approval, you are living from approval already given. The delays are broken, the testimony alive, the story unfolding. The King has smiled, the throne has shaken, and your name has been spoken in joy. That laughter was not empty, it was the signal that your Kairos moment has begun. What you prayed in silence has already stirred the heavens. What you whispered in weakness has already been recorded as victory. This is not the end of your story, it is the turning of the page. The supernatural transfer has already begun. Doors are aligning, blessings converging, breakthroughs accelerating. So rise now, chosen one. Walk as if the earth itself is tilting in your favor. Heaven laughs, and that laugh is your proof, your seal, your unstoppable acceleration into triumph. Anointed one, the soil that once seemed like a graveyard has become the foundation of resurrection. What looked like burial was, in truth, planting. The very earth that covered your tears is now trembling with new life. Those who sow with tears will reap with songs of joy. Psalm 126:5. What you thought was the silence of endings has become the resonance chamber of beginnings. Like an architect designing domes that carry weight not by crushing force but by perfect curvature, God has engineered your hidden seasons as structures of endurance. Do you realize that the same pressure you thought would crush you has been shaping you into a vessel strong enough to carry abundance? Every tear you sowed in secret has not evaporated unnoticed. They have condensed into a cloud of testimony, now pouring as harvest in abundance. And harvest is never random, it is covenant. Do not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Galatians 6-9. When you stand tall in gratitude, you align with the author of your destiny, who is laughing over you with joy. And his laughter is not sentimental amusement, it is a decree of permanence, a frequency vibrating through both visible and invisible realms. Have you felt it, those moments when, despite your weakness, courage suddenly rose like fire in your bones? That was his laughter resonating through you. His delight is not only your strength but your shield. His laughter is not only your covering but your weapon. His promise is not only your inheritance but your anchor. Remember how Sarah laughed in disbelief at God's promise of Isaac, Genesis 18:12. Yet God's laughter was greater, and his word prevailed. If Sarah's frail chuckle could be transformed into the cry of a child, how much more can heaven's roar over you transform what feels impossible into undeniable evidence? Stay faithful, stay aligned, keep saying yes, even when the step feels small, because whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. Luke 16:10. Every act of obedience is not a fleeting gesture, it is echoing in eternity like ripples in an endless sea. A whispered prayer becomes a seismic wave in the spirit. A hidden act of forgiveness shifts the tectonic plates of destiny. Can you sense how your smallest yes is constructing corridors of breakthrough that generations after you will walk through? I once met a night shift janitor named Elias, who confessed he often prayed quietly while sweeping empty corridors. He thought his words dissolved into silence. But years later, he discovered his whispered intercessions had been the very prayers sustaining his children's survival in seasons of danger. His hidden yes carried generational weight. Does this not echo what Scripture declares? The prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective. James 5:16. Anointed one, lift your spirit. The King has laughed, and his laughter has secured your outcome. His joy shakes the unseen and bends timelines in your favor. What was once confinement is now expansion. What was once silence is now symphony. The laughter of heaven is your anthem, reverberating like Handel's Messiah, where the chorus, Hallelujah, was not merely sung but thundered across centuries as proclamation of victory. Will you not walk as though that chorus is the soundtrack of your steps? So I bless you, courage for the road ahead, peace for every battle, and vision to see beyond what your eyes can hold. Share this word with those who hunger for hope. Let your heart remain open for more. Subscribe if your spirit bears witness, and declare with boldness in the comments, I receive this victory. Aziz Seek. And now, rise in holy boldness. Go forward with confidence. Chosen one, the King has laughed, the heavens have roared, and your victory is already secure. The soil has shifted, the atmosphere has turned, and eternity has recorded your name in triumph. Rise and walk as one already crowned. Chosen one, let this truth settle into your spirit with unshakable certainty. What you did today was not ordinary, not invisible, not insignificant. Heaven leaned in, the throne shook, and the King himself laughed, a laugh not of mockery, but of victory. A laugh that carried the sound of destiny being sealed in your favor. When God laughs, it is not entertainment, it is proclamation. His laughter is the decree that chains are breaking, that storms are bowing, that the plans of darkness have already collapsed before your very eyes. It is heaven's way of declaring, the story has turned, and my chosen one has already won. Then may knots infert the pressers were 3-2. There is profound weight in this moment. Every small step of obedience you took, whether it was forgiving someone who hurt you, whispering a trembling prayer, giving out of scarcity, or choosing hope when despair pressed hard, was written into eternity. It became more than action, it became testimony. Scripture reminds us, for our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. 2 Corinthians 4:17. What looked fragile in the natural was thunder in the unseen. What you thought was survival became prophecy, and what you thought was weakness became heaven's weapon. Chosen one, heaven's laughter is your shield. It means your hidden tears have watered the ground of breakthrough. It means your scars are not wasted but are being rewritten as sources of healing for others. Do you realize that your endurance, your choice to keep moving forward, is already a living sermon? There are people watching, silently gathering courage because they see you standing when falling seemed inevitable. You are proof that the enemy's strategies have failed. Every breath you draw whispers, the plan against me has collapsed. Well, and because God has laughed over you, your future cannot end in defeat. His laughter is louder than fear, greater than doubt, and stronger than the voices that told you you would never rise again. Remember the words of Job. He catches the wise in their craftiness, and the schemes of the wily are swept away. Job 5:13. The traps that were set to silence you have become platforms for your voice. The stones that were meant to bury you have become the foundation for your next elevation. This is not the season of hiding. This is not the season of delay. This is the season of unveiling, of acceleration, of overflowing abundance. Heaven laughs because your mantle is too weighty to remain unseen, your authority too sharp to remain unheard, and your influence too vast to remain confined. The laughter of God is the signal that the gates are open, the tide has turned, and the appointed hour has come. As the psalmist declared, "The Lord has done great things for us, and we are filled with joy." Psalm 126:3. So walk with holy confidence. Stop diminishing your steps. Stop comparing your journey to others. Stop believing that you are behind. You are not crawling toward victory, you are advancing from victory already secured. The King has laughed, and his laughter is your crown, your covering, and your confidence. Carry it with you into every prayer, every battle, every uncertain moment. Let it drown out the whispers of fear. Let it silence every shadow of insecurity. Let it remind you that heaven has already celebrated your step, and that victory is no longer about if, but only about when. And now, beloved ones, as we bring this word to a close, I want to invite you to respond. If this message has spoken to your heart, if you felt heaven's laughter resonate in your spirit, I encourage you to take action, like this video. Share it with someone who needs the reminder that their story is not finished. Leave a comment declaring your agreement with heaven's decree. Write boldly, "I receive this victory," and make sure you subscribe to this channel so you never miss what God is releasing in this season. To those who have supported this work, whether through super thanks or simply by showing up with your presence, your prayers, and your encouragement, I want to pause and say thank you. Your faithfulness is not small. You are part of the echo of heaven's laughter, amplifying the message to hearts across the world. And if you have not given but are still here, listening and receiving, know that your presence alone is already a gift. I honor you, I bless you, and I thank God for you, chosen one. As you leave this word and step back into your day, may you carry the sound of heaven's laughter deep within your soul. May His joy be your strength, His presence your shield, and His promise your inheritance. May doors swing open before you. May chains fall at your feet. And may every seed you planted in tears rise now in a harvest of joy. Go in boldness. Go in peace. Go in victory. The King has laughed, and that laugh has sealed your triumph forever. You are chosen. You are anointed. And you are already walking in destiny.
And we're gonna let it